Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode driven by our friends over at the Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Talk more about those guys at the end of the episode and sponsor segment. I am Sam with Fall Obsession, your podcast host. Glad to be back on here for another Monday morning episode with you guys. Super excited about this episode too, because I'm back on here virtually hanging out with a guy that I got to spend a weekend in hunting camp with a little over a month ago, and that is Mr. Mark Zorich. Welcome back to Fall Obsession and to the podcast, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited. I'm still glowing from the hunt. We had last night we made some backstrap from the buck that I shot, and man, those whitetails are delicious. They come close to the axis deer in Hawaii, but man, we've been eating that deer. So
Perfect. That's awesome, man. So for our listeners' sake, in case you guys haven't heard or are kind of trying to piece it together and everything, Mark is the lucky guy who won our veteran hunt giveaway that we hosted, a whitetail deer hunt down here in Texas, beginning of December for a weekend. And we have a big shout out to pro staffer Waylon Langford for his contribution with actually providing the place for Mark to go hunting and everything. But all as to say, a lot what we're going to talk about here is in reference to that trip and Mark coming down here and spending a weekend in camp with Waylon and myself. And obviously, as he already alluded to, got some venison to take back home to California with him there. So
just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. I'm sure we'll make sure that we hit that too, as far as what all was involved with getting that back too, because that was interesting. But we'll get to that.
That's actually good knowledge for people that want to hunt out of state too.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Well, man, I'm to kind of lead into it, and I know you and I and Waylon, we had these conversations in camp and everything. We're kind of going back and reflecting a little bit here today, but obviously we probably have some people listening to this podcast too that aren't familiar with the story or anything like that. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about what your thoughts were coming down to Texas and kind of how those played out, expectations versus reality type thing.
Yeah, so I applied. I think it was the second week of December. I saw the giveaway pop up on my Facebook feed, and one of the, I guess, perks of being a veteran is there's a lot of organizations out there that do veteran type hunts or giveaways and stuff like that. So while I have applied for many of them, this was the first one that I applied for and I won. And it was that call that you gave me that afternoon, I was just like elated. I was like, really? You guys chose me of all people? So, I don't know if I necessarily went out with any expectations. I've never hunted whitetail before. I've never hunted like in ground blinds or anything like that before. So I kind of went into it with an open mind. I didn't want to either set myself up for disappointment, but with that, if we had success, I wanted to enjoy that success as much as I could. So, I went in with like a real open mind, not expecting anything. And, the whole experience was far exceeded any expectations that I did have. It was top notch from pickup to when you dropped me off at the airport.
Awesome. Happy to hear it, man. So you mentioned having never hunted ground blinds before or anything like that. I know you're from California, and we'll talk more here in a little bit about kind of your hunting experience up there and everything. But I know that first day, and I'll say it from, and I can speak for Waylon as well, from the side of the hunt host. We get out there, and you know as good as I do that it's warmer temps. The wind is just absolutely tearing it up out there. I was nervous that first afternoon because, I mean, we want to be good hosts. We want to, give you a good experience and everything when you come down here. And we roll into camp that first day, that Friday afternoon, and the wind is just absolutely ripping a new one out there in the Texas Panhandle. And yeah, I was a little skeptical, but we got in the ground blind. What were your thoughts when we first got down there and got in that blind?
I was like, well, here we go. It's I only know whitetail hunting from like TV shows, and so there's two, I guess, like perceptions that I went out there with. Is one, man, this could be really, really boring. It's coming from the style of hunting that I've come accustomed to hunting in California and everything. We're on the move constantly. So I'm like, well, how's this going to be? And then two, like you said, the weather. I wasn't sure about the temperature wise, how the deer were going to react, because I don't know the environment, but I know at least out here when it gets real windy like that, and I think that first day was probably like 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts. Yeah. From what I could feel, I was like, I do know deer lay down in wind like that. And but what we saw, that I think we had a doe pop out at like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah,
that was absolutely a hog of a doe. So I think all of that went away right then and there. It was just like, all right, we're gonna see deer, and I don't think I'm gonna be bored, and I think we're gonna have some opportunity here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was very pleased to have that first one pop out right away. I was probably just as surprised as you were to see her that quick and everything, because it's still, at the same time, it's early in the afternoon also. But Waylon had a really good spot as far as where he'd set his blind and everything, and just, I mean, the environment, at least coming from a Texas guy, is not what we typically, or what I've typically hunted or anything like that. I know Waylon talked to you about, his experience going out there when he first got on the place and not thinking there was any deer there, just because how flat and open it is. But man, the deer are there. They hug those creek beds, those tree lines and everything. And he's hunting the edges of them is what he's doing. And it paid off for us that weekend for sure. So
yeah, definitely. And, there's quite a bit more topography out there than what it leads on to be. After we got the doe, and we kind of had to go down in that creek area to recover, like you really see there is a lot of terrain in there. There's a lot of cover, and there's a lot of way for those deers to use that as like, kind of a deer highway almost, and then pop out when they need to pop out. And it was cool to see that. It wasn't just some giant open field.
Yeah.
There was quite a bit of habitat in there, and they were using that habitat very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about that doe hunt in particular, because Waylon threw that in there for you too, and let you, I mean, it was originally, you were coming down there for a whitetail buck. That was the goal. But I mean, the does are everywhere out there, and he threw one of those your way and gave you the opportunity to take a doe the first morning, so Saturday morning. And she ran farther than we thought and ended up crossing a creek. That was an interesting experience, I think, for everybody, getting that thing back across the creek. And I don't know if I told y'all in camp or anything, but the whole weekend and everything, I'm texting our fall obsession admins and stuff, keeping them up to date on how things are going, and everybody's excited to have you out there. And then we get that. I tell them the story briefly of having to get that doe back across the creek, because I'm the only one wearing tall boots, so I'm the one that goes over there and everything. And their immediate reaction is, man, that's going to look really good in the video, or that's going to be cool to show in the video. I'm like, hey guys, when you send the cameramen across the creek to get your deer, you normally don't get it on film.
Yeah, that I'll admit it. I got a little bit of buck fever, for the audience that hasn't seen the video or doesn't know my background. I'm a police sniper. I'm a sniper instructor, and then I have a business where I teach people how to shoot bolt rifles and at very, very long distances. But I got with a little bit of buck fever and how cold it was. The last time I had shot that rifle and zeroed that rifle was at my house before I took a trip to go hunt axis deer in Hawaii. So my rifle was zeroed for temperatures that were almost 100 degrees. Um, and me, it was just an error on my part. And it's something I teach in my classes all the time at how much weather affects flight paths, especially real cold weather, between how the powder burns in the cartridge and then how the bolt actually travels through that thick, dense, cold air. It wasn't the most ideal shot. And hey, I'll admit that all the time. We can't always make perfect shots, and luckily we were able to tromp through some of that terrain, and you were actually able to find that doe bedded down, and man, she chose the worst spot ever. she chose an island in the middle of a creek, and I think the silt in that creek, if you had put all your weight into it, probably would have gone up to your knee.
Yeah.
Um,
It it was straight nasty, and it smelled bad. And you look at, and I made a comment to Waylon that weekend too. You look at all these deer, and with whitetail, you typically see a lighter or a tan colored leg from the bottom down on these deer. Well, all these deer are walking around with these dark brown or black legs from the knee down. And at first glance, I was trying to figure it out. Like, what's the deal? Is that just a weird looking deer? And they all had it. And that's exactly why, because they cross those creeks and they're so freaking deep like that it's just, it swallows them up. What we ended up doing, so our listeners know, we ended up, I found an old dried, pretty lightweight log just from a down tree, threw it across the creek to make a quote unquote bridge, and kind of shimmied my way back across there, scooting the doe. And she's a big doe on top of that. So we're scooting her with them. And I get all the way to the end. And I think I probably had one more step left. And I was losing my balance at that point. And I think I looked at Waylon and I was like, hey, grab the deer. And Waylon reached out and grabbed her foot. And I think you grabbed me at that point and pulled me in.
Yep.
But that could have been a lot worse than it ended. But we got her over and everything. But yeah, there's so many places back in there that are like that like looking at these open fields, looking at just acres and acres and acres of farmland, you wouldn't think that these deer have an environment like that out there to hide in and live in. So it's pretty crazy.
You also didn't tell them that you found out about the hole in your boot on that last step.
Yeah, I did find out that I had a hole in my right boot. And for the record, I have since gotten new hunting boots. So we're all squared away for if and when that has to happen again. So
Yeah, that was man, that was definitely an interesting experience, because then we had to hike that doe out, and I mean, I think that doe probably weighed like 150, 160 pounds.
yeah,
We had to hike that doe out through a bunch of scrub brush. Out what are those, like manzanitas?
little mesquite trees and stuff.
Yeah, through all this mesquite, through all these dry creek beds for about 100 yards, and then get this thing under a fence so we could get it to the truck and take it back. And man, I wish I'd made a better shot, but it was I'm glad we recovered her, and yeah, she was a heifer of a doe.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got her knocked down too, and I know the mindset at the beginning of that day also was, obviously, don't want to seem like we're hunting horns, but it's a buck hunt. That's why you're there. And all the bucks out there are busted up, and there was one in particular that if he hadn't have broken off his entire right side, he probably would have been the one that got the lucky ticket at the end of the week. But kind of holding out, hoping for a good buck like that. And I remember asking that morning in the blind, hey, if you want to take a doe, you can take a doe, and no, I'm going to hold out for a buck. And about 9:30 rolls around and you're like, I'm cold. I'm gonna shoot a doe now.
But yeah, someone forgot the blind heater that morning. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think we were both cold. I did it for both of us, but we did have that one buck this morning that was, I think from what I remember, he was pretty similar to the buck I ended up taking, but with my experiences through shooting and police work and competition shooting, I just felt like if I had taken that shot, I was almost 100% sure that I was going to hit barbed wire. So, I mean, we watched that one buck 25, 30 minutes that morning, I think,
Yeah.
before that doe came, before, we kind of deemed that it was too late, I guess.
Right.
And I decided like, hey, let's go shoot that doe. But yeah, I was there to shoot a buck, and we definitely saw a lot of bucks. It was cool, and that was like one of the highlights. It was like every hour you're like, hey, there's a buck over there, or hey, I see a buck over here, and they weren't all necessarily shooters, but it's cool to see something with antlers on it trotting down at 200, 300, 400 yards away and watching him come into the feeder or cross the creek in that one spot where everything was.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Definitely had plenty of deer to look at and keep us entertained throughout the hunts for sure. No doubt about that.
And even though like we spent a lot of time in that blind having the amount of animals come through, you know, even if it wasn't a buck, having a group of does come in, it kept it interesting. You weren't just sitting there glassing at nothing for hours at a time. We can almost, I mean, I would say we saw at least a new deer or a deer coming in, every 25 to 30 minutes, which kept it interesting. It kept us awake and kept me hopeful and excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, let's fast forward to the last morning when what it all boiled down to in the end.
Yeah, down to the wire, and you know, out here when hunts get down to the wire, it means you ain't getting anything. But with the amount of deer we had seen the first afternoon, and then our full day of hunting on Saturday. I went into that morning very, very excited. I knew we were going to get something. I didn't think we were going to settle on anything that was like, a yearling or anything like that. I knew something good was going to come. But yeah, we're 8 minutes into shooting light, and I see what I think is the buck that I didn't get the shot on yesterday come in. Like literally, there's barely enough light to see through the scope. I know there wasn't hardly any light for the camera, and he comes in and gets right by that feeder, and it's just like, all right, it's go time. This is it. We're not gonna play the chance game and hope something a little bit better comes out. And I knew right away. I told you that, hey, we're gonna shoot this buck, and you're like, okay, let's do it. He's like, you're like, you told me the light's not great, but we're not gonna worry about that. We're gonna worry about getting a deer on the ground.
Yeah.
So I'd learned my lesson the day before on where my rifle needed to be. So I put a little bit of adjustment into it, so that mistake wasn't going to happen with a low shot again. And he gave me a perfect broadside shot at like, I think we were at like 130 or so yards. And as soon as the shot cracked off, like I knew it was right behind the shoulder and the vitals. And I didn't get right back on him, just how I was set up in the blind, but you're like, he's down. And I was like, where? I don't see him. So I thought he took off again. I thought he went right back behind him because there was that game trail behind him. And you're like, no, he's down. I saw him go down. And he ended up dropping 25, 30 yards from where we shot. So it was really good shot placement. And it was the buck I wanted. It was again, not going in with any expectations. I didn't think we were going to shoot one of these trophy inbred whitetails that you see on these high fence ranches. I know we were out there to shoot a wild whitetail, and I couldn't have been happier with the deer we got, you know. So it was awesome morning, and the fact that we were 8 minutes into shooting, like, you know, took all that stress off, and it was just a great way to cap an awesome weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was definitely a mindset going in, is that whatever's going to happen at a buck that is going to be worthy of putting a tag on, it's going to happen sooner rather than later, because just the behavior that we had seen, you know, with the morning before, was any bucks that showed any potential were moving early, and the later it got, yeah, you still had does and maybe a young buck or two in front of you, but the later it got, obviously and I know that this is kind of a standard thing that a lot of people probably observe in their local hunting areas, but the later it got, you know, the more your chances kind of were withering away. So kind of went into it with the mentality of, as soon as we get an opportunity, we need to capitalize, and man, you did just that. It worked out good.
It did work out good, and you know, I didn't feel like I cheated myself by shooting that buck. I didn't feel like we left anything out there, you know. The buck that we saw the day before was pretty much identical. Had a little bit of he had a one time that was broken off, and you know, we didn't see anything that was like, man, I should have shot that one.
Yeah.
You know, that buck was on par with the biggest deer that we saw out there that weekend, besides that absolute trophy that ran across the road when we were going out that one afternoon. But you know, you know, I couldn't have been happier with what we shot. And like, you know, I hope you can still hear it. You know, my happiness from remembering that, I feel like right now, is the same happiness I felt right then and there. You know, so
Awesome.
it was just, you know, it was a great way to like end the hunt. You know, we're down to the wire, big old bodied buck that was a fighter comes on out, and you know, that was the way I think you want a hunt to end. You know, if this was like a television TV show, you know, we hit the climax of the hunt right at the perfect time. You
Yeah.
know, we didn't shoot a buck on the first day, and then like, what are we gonna do for the rest of the weekend? You know, it used our time well.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah, it could not have gone any more perfect for sure.
Hmm.
So one thing that's not in any of the videos, and before I forget, I haven't even mentioned it, but we do have a video kind of centered around Mark, and just, you know, why this hunt was special to him and everything, on our YouTube channel. It's the first installment of our My Obsession series, but it's this hunt is the experience that we were able to document with him. So a lot of what we're talking about here is shown throughout that short video. But one thing that's not in the video is getting that meat back to California. And I know I asked you before you even came down there, you know, what your intentions were for the meat, and you were pretty confident that you were bringing it back, and said that you were bringing cooler bags and stuff. And I just, all right, he's got it figured out. He seems to know what he's doing, because I really didn't know what you had planned. But again, you seem pretty confident, so I was going to take your word for it. And so I'll let you share with everybody kind of what your system is for traveling and flying on an airplane with wild game meat fresh out of the
Yeah,
field.
yeah, I know. I don't think Waylon believed what I was gonna do until we left. But so I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to hunt axis deer twice in Hawaii, and you know, baggage to and from Hawaii is really expensive, because you know, you have all of your regular luggage, you have a rifle you're bringing out there, which is another bag, and then you know, you want to get meat home. Well, how do you get meat home, especially when the plane ride is going to be 6+ hours? It's a super warm environment, and you know, shipping it is going to cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars to overnight or 2 day something. So I did a ton of research before my first axis hunt about what you can and can't bring onto airplanes as carry-on bags. and weight limits and all of this stuff. So um, on both my Axis hunts, I have taken like Yeti cooler bags, like the soft cooler bags. I have knockoffs because I can't afford the Yeti stuff, but I've taken Yeti soft cooler bags. I think they're like the 33 quart cooler bags, and I've been able to freeze the meat and in quarters, and I bring the meat on as a carry-on. um, I know it's hard to believe, and people are like, "Really? You just bring like hundreds of pounds of meat on as carry-ons?" And yes, that is how I have got the meat home twice from Hawaii, and then on this hunt. I did check one of our bags in because I had three of these coolers with like 50, 60 pounds of meat in each of them, but I'm fine with paying extra baggage fee on one. Paying extra baggage 3 on 3 would have been like 300, $400. But yeah, so for this hunt, I wasn't able to freeze it, but we were able to get the meat into quartered out, skinned, and then I used non-scented trash bags. And you do a really good wrap with the non-scented trash bags, and then you can fold them over and almost double wrap them. And we were able to get it. The doe on ice was almost completely frozen, and then the buck got cold enough, and then with the doe meat, it was plenty cold, and wrap them in the trash bags, and then we were able to get like I think we got 3 shoulders in one. I know we got 2 quarters in the back straps in another, and then we got all the other meat in the last one. Um, so yeah, you get a little bit of weird looks going through TSA. I know I got flagged on that one.
Oh, you
On
did?
that, yes, yeah. So I had to go do the special check because the guy thought I was bringing home. He thought there was for he thought there was a dead dog in it. And I was like, really? You think I'm gonna bring like a dead dog through this? But yeah, he came over and did the check and just made sure it wasn't like human or a domestic animal. And I told him what it was and showed him my hunt license. And yeah, 100 pounds of meat carried on.
Man, so I know I was having a hard time wrapping my mind around. I know Waylon shared the same feeling, but I mean we were both just going with it, you know. It's like he's done it before, and I know you mentioned, it's probably a more common thing in some place like Hawaii where everybody flies in and out, opposed to Texas. But so for our listeners who don't know, like Mark said, the doe was already pretty cold because we put these deer, we quartered them after he killed them, and then we just put them in ice chests, and it was ice chests just stayed in my pickup, but it was cold enough outside at night and even during the day that the ice held and the meat got really cold. But with the buck, obviously he killed the buck the same day that he was leaving, so it's roughly a 3-hour drive from the camp house to the airport. So we left both of them on ice all the way to the airport. And then Mark and I are standing there in the airport parking garage packing meat into these Yeti cooler bags, people driving by and walking around and everything. I wasn't even paying attention to see if we were getting any looks or not. But yeah, I can check that off my list as something I've never done at DFW airport before. So.
Mm-hmm. But it's good knowledge, It's especially for people to hunt out of state. It's easy to do a deer and antelope. You're probably not going to do it with an elk or anything like that. But it's for people that have to hunt on a budget and aren't these people that can afford tens of $1,000 hunts with the host shipping your meat back for you and coolers and everything. It's just a good little snippet to have because it makes hunting more accessible to everyone, and it makes it so you can hunt and then you don't have to waste the meat. Obviously I would have, if we were in California, I would have taken every scrap of meat off those deer that I could, but that's not quite a reality in these situations. But we took as much as I possibly could. I think I brought home close to 150 pounds of meat from those two. We were right under it, so we loaded those bags as full as I could possibly get them, and I will enjoy every morsel of those deer.
Good deal. Well, man, it was an awesome trip. I know I speak for Waylon too, that, you know, we were super excited to have you come down here and join us, and it was just as rewarding for us to be able to do what we could to make that possible for you. So really glad that you got to make the trip down and join us for a weekend in Texas.
No, it was awesome. And like, you know, like I still can't convey like how grateful I am to both you and to Waylon for that property. You know, I told Waylon 6 times that weekend, like, dude, this property is absolutely amazing. Like, I can't believe you just let some stranger come out here and hunt it, because, you know, that takes a lot of trust. You know, it takes a lot of trust for one, that they're going to be competent with their rifle, and they're going to know what to do when the animal does come, and you're not going to just sitting here taking pop shots at deer from whatever yardage we were at. And you know, and I'm glad that he installed that trust in me so quick. You know, he'd never talked to me, he'd never met me or anything. And you know, it was such a fun weekend. You know, you're like, well, don't expect much from the camp house or whatever. And, you know, it was like a full on, it was a super cool little hunt house and everything. You know, it's nothing crazy fancy or anything like that. But, you know, he had some cool mounts in there. It gave us a roof over our head. It was warm every night, and it was close to the hunting grounds. You know, it was, again, it was way more than I could have ever expected from the whole experience. So, you know, I'm hoping, like I told you and I told Waylon, like, I hope that you guys can give this opportunity to another veteran. And I hope that veteran is as grateful for the experience as I am, because it seriously, it made my hunting season.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it, man, and thank you very much. And yes, absolutely. We hope that the future definitely holds some similar opportunities for others for sure. That's something that we for sure want to be a part of, and giving back to you guys who served our country and still serving like you are now as a first responder and everything. So very much appreciative.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, though, before we hang up, I'm going to shift gears a little bit to you up there, because you coming down here and hunting in Texas with us is not all that there is to you by any means. So first off, I'll let you kind of talk about maybe some of your experiences up there hunting, because you've been hunting for several years up there in California, and California is not normally for lack of a better term, a destination state for a lot of people when it comes to hunting. It's not something, you know, the first place that comes to mind. So tell us a little bit about your neck of the woods and what your hunting experience has been like up there over the years.
So I'm an avid hunter, from turkey, ducks, deer, elk, anything I can hunt and eat, I love to hunt. But California is one of the most frustrating states to hunt deer in that you could imagine. It is a ton of work if you don't have private property to hunt. And our deer here are nothing like, are not, they're pretty much like dogs with antlers. They're pretty small. We have a Colombian blacktail on the western portion of the state, and then on the eastern portion in the Sierra Nevadas, we have hybrids of mule deer and blacktail, and then on the eastern slope itself, we have full bred mule deer. So I hunt in a zone typically called B zone. It's in the Mendocino National Forest, and we hunt anywhere in the elevation between like 64 to 8,400 feet. And on the area that I hunt in, typically I have like a spot that has been very productive for California standards. You know, we can go in there with 4 tags, and generally we'll fill two to 4 of them, which is, for that zone has a 15% success rate average.
Wow.
And that's high. That's the average zone. That's not a premium hunt in California. It has closer to like a 3 to 5% success rate. So we go in and everything's on our back. Our base camp is about 5 miles from the truck, and it is in like real steep terrain. Like, you think of a true Western hunter, like you are hiking on like very narrow trails up and down the sides of mountains. The area that the deer are typically in, you're side hilling on shale to get to the areas for the deer. And then if and when you are successful, you're hiking that deer on your back with all your gear out. So it's very different. This coming up season, I will be lucky enough to pull one of our premium zones on the eastern slope. I could have pulled the tag this year, but due to a family vacation and some other stuff, I didn't want to go up there and only have a weekend to hunt it. I want to give myself the full 10 days to go up there. But those zones are called X zone for us, and it takes anywhere from 4.5 to like 12 to 15 years for the real high end ones to be able to pull them. So we do a true preference point system. So every year that you don't draw that tag, you get a point added to it. And the good thing about the deer zones is there's not a lot of point creep on them. So generally, if you want said zone, if it's 6 points this year, it'll be 6 points next year. Now, for our elk and antelope, that's a little bit different. There's a lot of point creep with our elk and antelope, and it's like a once in a lifetime tag, unfortunately, for how stable our elk herds are here. So hopefully that'll change, but it's a very different style of hunting, and like I said, like I told you out there, and I think I mentioned it in the video, there's it's not better or worse than what you guys do. There's a lot of fun in being way out in the backcountry on your own, but there's also a tremendous amount of frustration, hopelessness, disappointment when you've been out there for 5 days and you've seen 3 bucks. And the blacktail out here are we call them the gray ghosts of the forest. They are incredibly intuitive to their surroundings. We have a lot of mountain lions and a lot of bears where the deer live. So these things have noses on them like you wouldn't believe, and they have ears and eyes that are insane. If they see you, they're gone, and you will never see that buck again. And it's hard. So I think that was why I had such a fun time going out with you guys. It's not necessarily an easier hunt with you guys because you have to have a lot of patience. Like, if you want something decent, or you have to be able to sit out there in 40-mile-an-hour winds or 20-degree mornings, and that's miserable on its own. But it's fun to be able to see all the deer and being like a part of their habitat versus like as soon as you become a part of the habitat out here, the deer never come back.
Yeah.
So, but it's fun. Yeah, California is different. I'm fortunate enough, I live on 8 acres, and all the properties around mine are between 5 to 20 acres. So I have some pretty good habitat for deer on my property, and I've been able to take the nicest buck I'll ever take in California on my property a couple years ago. And
Awesome.
so I hunt archery on my property, and then hunt turkeys. So turkey season's coming up in about a month and a half here, and we're always loaded with turkey and everything. And then if you want to shoot ground squirrels, I got plenty of those here too.
Awesome. Yeah, different worlds for sure, but it doesn't matter where you go or what you're hunting. It's hard to say one is extremely easier than another because, like you say, they all come with their own challenges for sure. So
Yeah, and it's like I know that there's Western hunters that look down on said style of hunting or whatever, or you're just shooting fish in a barrel, and that's completely not true whatsoever. It's just a different style, and there's nothing wrong with either one. Like, I would love, like, listening to Waylon talk all weekend, listening to him talk about his record deer and the deer that he sees on the property, and like, watching you with your Texas Dirt series and all that, like that, how could you not have fun with that? Like,
exactly, yeah,
you get you get in tune with what these deer are doing. And like with you guys being able to manage habitat and like affect how these deer produce and affect antler size, and like really hone in on what you want. like that's awesome. Like I wish I could do that here. Like that's not possible in California, and it won't ever be possible here, you know. Like I told you, it's like if it has antlers on it and it has a fork on it, I'm gonna shoot it. I'm not passing on a buck in California. I will say with a caveat to that, I will pass on bucks in X zone because the deer population up there is quite a bit healthier, where you are seeing multiple bucks a day. But that's also why it takes 6, 7, 8 years to pull these tags. But
Yeah.
you know, it's two different worlds, but it's hunting.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go through this grueling, agonizing process to have success and have it be fun. So it was a cool experience, and I know I would like you guys to come out here, and I'll take you up into the wilderness one year, and you know, and you guys can have a different style of hunting.
Yeah. That's awesome, man, for sure. Well, real quick also, you outside of hunting, and you alluded to it earlier on toward the beginning, but um, you're you're a sheriff's deputy now, former military sheriff's deputy
Hmm.
now. You're a sniper, and you run your own shooting school or shooting academy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So last year, or no, it was not last year. It was 2.5 years ago. I got certified through the state of California to be a sniper instructor, and so I've always done the bolt guns and the long range shooting through work and through the police and tactical aspect of it. But I got really into like shooting, competition shooting. It's called the NRL, the National Rifle Series, or PRS, or the Precision Rifle Series. Um, but there's like this huge gateway into these two sports. You know, it's long range shooting has been so overly complicated with different techniques and scopes and ballistic data. And I was like, it doesn't have to be that hard, you know. If I can teach a cop to do this, I can teach a civilian to do it, because cops are not smart, you know. Things need to be black and white, and we just need to be able to do it. So, you know, I saw kind of a little niche on like an opportunity. So last spring, on a couple of the Facebook hunting forums, I posted a little bit about me, and I said, hey, I'd like to start teaching this stuff. No social media on my end as far as business pages go. And my first class sold out, 12 shooters in like a matter of like 2 days.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa. So I posted another one. Again, no social media, not doing anything, just on word of mouth. That one sold out in like 2 days. So I was like, okay, let's post another one. Well, I ended up posting another two that summer. All of them sold out. I was like, man, I think there's something here. Um, and they're such a fun experience. You know, I have access to a private range where we have steel hung out to from 200 yards all the way up to 1,350 yards. So I have a really good range to teach people on and show them how ballistics work, what happens at X amount of distance to these bullets, and really hone in on the fundamentals of what long rifles can do, you know, without complicating it.
Right.
Um, and my methodology and my system has worked super, super well. So I've finally made social media pages, and it's kind of taken off. I've posted my first 5 classes for this year, which my first one's not even until April. And all 5 of my first classes until July are sold out within weeks.
Wow.
Um, and then I plan to have probably another 2 or 3, depending on my competition schedule at the end of summer. But yeah, it's super fun. It's my biggest passion in life. That's what I was doing before this. I have my little 22 trainer gun right here that I was out at on my buddy's property, um, teaching him, because he's going to shoot his first competition season with me this summer. So teaching him, and then also getting my skills back. You know, shooting's a perishable skill, and if you don't train at it, no matter how good you are, you're going to start sucking at it at some point.
Yep.
So yeah, if you guys are interested in long range shooting, and I know the majority of your audience isn't on the West Coast, but post a lot of how-tos and instructional stuff. And if you wanted to shoot me a message like, hey, I'm interested in this scope, or hey, this is what's going on with my gun, my Facebook page is West Coast Long Range. And then my Instagram page is West Coast _ Long Range. And yeah, I'm happy to help out. If you guys can make it out to a class, I'd love to have fall session out there for a class,
Yeah.
come out and we have a lot of fun, everything's included in my classes, and I just try and take care of the shooters in the least stressful environment that they can be in so they can learn what this great sport has to offer.
Absolutely. For sure, man. That's awesome. And I know I mean, you're already sold out. You got no problem growing or getting where you need to be right now, but best of luck to you as you continue to pursue that. And yeah, it's an awesome thing that you're doing there for sure. So happy that it's going well for you.
Yeah, and it's super fun, and it's kind of like a new challenge, like I'm having to figure out like the social media stuff and all that. Like I'm sure you have like going through like how do I get people more engaged, or how do I get a broader audience, or how do I get more follows, or and then like I know me and you talked about it a little bit too, like on the content creator aspect of it. Like I told you, like I'm not a creative person, like I'm not good at visual arts or anything like that, but having to start learning that and start thinking about like, hey, I need to make a post about this, but I need the picture to look good, or I want to make a video about this. And I'm all in like the very baby phase of it. So it's, it was cool to go out on this hunt to bring it full circle and watch a content creator and watch how you work and your ideas and how to run these interviews and all that stuff. So yeah, it's fun. It's a good experience, and it's something I love. Hopefully, I don't have to be a cop in like 5 years, and I can just go teach people how to shoot.
You're well on your way to it for sure. You got a good foundation laid to do something like that eventually for sure. So
yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on our podcast as our guest for this week, and again reflecting on a trip that I know I'll not soon forget. I'm sure you won't either. It's a really awesome time again that we got to share camp together. I hope it's not the only time we get to share camp. Time will tell, but for sure, as I've said many times, it was super awesome having you down here in Texas, and appreciate you coming down. Appreciate you joining us for that, and again, join us for this podcast. It's been fun.
Definitely, and yeah, same. I think we'll share a camp somewhere. You guys either need to come out to the West Coast, or we'll go on an elk hunt or something out in Montana or Wyoming one of these days and do a little backcountry.
Heck
But,
yeah.
yeah, super grateful to you and to Waylon, and I've said it 20 times on here. I said it 20 times on my weekend out there with you guys. Like, just amazing, all around great experience, super fun, and I won't forget it. It's like it's probably one of the most memorable hunts I've ever been on. And not because we took a trophy or anything like that, just because of how giving you guys were, and then how awesome you and Waylon were on the hunt and the whole experience in general. So it was yeah, I'll be sad when I finish these deer, because every time I eat one of these deer, I'm eating my memories.
Yeah. For sure, man. Well, to our listeners, we appreciate you guys tuning in this week to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. If you guys have not already, hit that follow and subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you guys are listening on. We're on all major podcast apps, as well as our YouTube channel and our website, fallobsession.com. Head on over to that YouTube channel if you haven't already and subscribe to that. We're putting out a lot of different videos right now. Got some more stuff in the works coming. And again, if you have not seen Mark's video with the first installment of that My Obsession series, where he recaps and we actually show parts of this hunt that we've talked about here today, head on over to our YouTube and see that. It's up there ready for you guys to find. fallobsession.com, that is our hub, that's our website, that's where you guys can go to find all of our content, video series, educational articles, gear reviews, podcast. Obviously, we got it all on there for you guys. We're also working right now with our staffers across the country to come up with some more regional specific content to put on there, and we're working on those pages as we speak. So be sure you guys go check that out. We also got our apparel on there. Pick up some fall obsession merchandise. Been a little light on there here lately with the shortages and stuff, but finally got some stuff at our vendor about to roll back in. So head on over there, and we do offer military and first responder discounts. If you fit into either one of those groups, be sure you fill out the form. That way we can hook you guys up. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, again, that YouTube. Go follow us on all of the social media platforms. We post daily. And another thing that we are working on right now, this podcast is going to be episode number 90. So we're coming up on that 100 number for our podcast episodes. And we're trying to do something a little bit different for episode 100. It's going to be the first time that all 4 of our fall obsession administrators get on here and do a virtual podcast together. And we want to be able to answer y'all's questions or talk about anything that you guys are just wanting to know more about, whatever it might be. If you have something you want to share and want us to cover in episode 100, go to fallobsession.com/podcast, fill out the form on there, and we'll be sure that we hit it in the upcoming episode 100. Do it sooner rather than later, because these next 10 weeks will fly by before you know it. So finally, our sponsor segment, Ridge Rock Hunt Company. I'm rocking the hat. Derek and Lacey over in Mississippi, they book hunts with vetted outfitters across the entire North America and outside the United States as well. They're good friends of ours. We've enjoyed getting to know them and cultivating that relationship over the past couple years, and they're good people, and they'll steer you straight and get you hooked up with whatever you're looking for, whatever kind of hunt it might be. So head on over, check them out on social media and their website. Again, it's Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Mark, thanks again, buddy. It's been awesome talking to you, catching up.
Thank you. It was it's good to relive the memories.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank y'all for listening, and we will catch you guys again next week for another Fall Obsession podcast episode.